Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Inside Guns with your host, me, the Yankee Marshal. I'm sure by now, a lot of you have already heard, you've read the headlines, you've heard the stories that the pro-gun organizations, the gun rights organizations, the supporters of the Second Amendment have failed in their challenge against the assault weapons ban in the state of Washington. That's the way the media is presenting it right now. But is that what really happened? Today I want to talk about what really happened. I want to talk about the ruling itself, how it happened, what they were actually seeking, was this actually challenging the law, and what's next. First off, they weren't challenging the law in this case. What they were asking for was a temporary injunction against the law until the case could be heard. They were saying that a lot of people are going to be damaged by this law if it goes into effect, and therefore it should be stayed until it can be overturned. And the judge that ruled in this case, and let's not make any bones about it, the judge was shopped by Ferguson to find someone who would be sympathetic to his ideas. And what he found was a nearly 90-year-old man that was appointed by Reagan, who we know was notoriously anti-gun. I know people like to deify Reagan, but he was very anti-gun. If people really knew what Reagan was about, I don't think he'd be so popular nowadays. If people knew he was about completely open borders and was totally anti-gun, because that kind of flies in the face of what most conservatives believe nowadays. But that's a different topic. But like I said, they found this man born in the 30s, nearly 90 years old, who's still sitting on the bench, which I think is a travesty in itself, that someone that old is deciding case law. Especially when he's being shopped around, they're finding someone, hey, let's go to this old senile geezer. He'll rule in our favor because he was appointed by an anti-gun president and his ideas are outdated. Doesn't understand what the new rulings are, new precedents are, etc. And they got what they wanted. And if you read what he said, it's absolutely clear that he doesn't understand what's going on. Because here, let me read a little quote. Now, First off, let's talk about why he's denying the injunction. He says that there's not enough irreparable harm going to be done. So I guess there's an acceptable amount of irreparable harm when you pass unconstitutional laws. That it's okay to harm people to a certain degree with these unconstitutional laws, as long as it's not harming the wrong people, as long as it's not hurting the people that they like. So he said there's not enough irreparable harm. And that wording right there clearly shows there is irreparable harm, just not in an amount that matters to him because it's not to the right people. So that right there off the bat is a bad decision, a flawed decision, a biased decision. But let's look at what he said when he tried to justify that decision. He said, considering the exceptional dangerousness of these weapons, the public, right there, not an understanding of what these weapons are, period. The public interest in their regulation by the state outweighs the plaintiff's desire to purchase more assault weapons. Right there in his decision, he's using the term assault weapons, which there is no such real term. There's no such real item that is in discussion here. They're banning semi-automatic weapons, semi-automatic rifles. So the fact that he's using that biased, fake term shows his bias right there. But also he's saying the state's interest, the public interest. That's what he's using as justification. The recent Supreme Court decision very clearly stated you can't do that. That you don't get to weigh public safety. You don't get to weigh public interest. It only is dependent on the Second Amendment and historical regulations on said firearms. So right there off the bat, he's showing he has a complete ignorance or at least a complete disregard of the new rulings, the new precedent. So right there off bat shows you what kind of person they went to find. Some old, out-of-touch guy who is either doesn't know what's going on or doesn't care. That right there, that statement alone should be enough to let you know right there he's not obeying what the Supreme Court said, because they clearly said public interest is no longer a considerable factor. But that's his main considerable factor right there. And I do want to point out one more thing about his ruling, and this is just a little side note in here. I thought about making this a second video, but we'll go over it right now. He said that he's justifying saying that, oh, well, yeah, the government can regulate extremely dangerous weapons because trap guns were illegal in England back in those days, and those were colonial times. For one, we're not England, and two, trap guns aren't guns. They have the word gun in the title, but that's not what they are. They're snares. They're basically landmines. No one uses them. No one carries them. They're not arms. They're something you leave out somewhere, and if someone strays along and steps on it, or gets in front of it, or hits it, it goes off. That's not a gun. That's setting a trap, a landmine. So that has no reference to actual firearms. The term gun is used for a lot of things that aren't actually guns. Squirt guns, cap guns, these guns, those are not actual firearms. He needs to be dealing with firearms. He doesn't even understand that basic principle. So no, that whole argument that because trap guns were illegal, that a commonly used semi-automatic rifle can be illegal doesn't make sense. That's like saying, because, you couldn't burn someone's house down, that was illegal back in the day, well, then we can say people can't have, Bic lighters, even though they didn't use Bic lighters to burn people's houses down. And that's a really bad analogy, but you know what I'm trying to say. I made that up on the fly, and it doesn't make sense now that I'm thinking about it. But you know what I'm saying. Those aren't guns at all. Now, you could make an argument that, well, because the founders, or England actually is who they're referring to, in colonial times, not the actual founders, made trap guns illegal, then the government can illegalize landmines. And that would make sense. That'd be an actual argument. This is not an actual argument. Like I said, he's using something that isn't a gun to make a decision on firearms, or something that isn't a firearm to make a decision on firearms. And he's basing his decision on something the Supreme Court says you can't do, public interest. So right off the bat, he's either, like I said, senile or dishonest, one or the other. And like I said, he was born in 1930 something, early 30s. So I'm leaning towards senile, actually. Why is this guy still serving? But like I was saying, that's what his ruling was. And it wasn't a ruling against, in favor of the assault weapons ban, other than to say, well, since they outlawed trap guns, they can do these, or at least they might be able to do these. We'll have to wait till the court case. He basically just denied an injunction, which as soon as they knew who was going to be hearing the case and blah, 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 they knew the injunction wasn't going to be granted. Now they have options here. They can just wait till the thing goes to trial, and win or lose in trial, that will determine what they do next. If they win, I actually hope they don't really win, and people are going to get mad at me for saying this, but here's the thing. If a judge inside the state of Washington overturns the current law that we're fighting, the current assault weapons ban, well, then in the state of Washington, it goes away. If it goes to the Ninth Circuit, well, that decides it for a larger chunk of the country. So if we lose inside the state and appeal it to the Ninth Circuit, well, then that takes it out of Oregon, California, etc. So it's a much bigger victory. And if that goes on to the Supreme Court and wins there, which, considering the Supreme Court's precedents and their own statements, they're not going to ignore their own rulings. It's definitely going to get overturned there. They would overturn it, I'm sure, just based on his statement for justifying this. That shows you they're just not listening to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is going to listen to the Supreme Court. And if we won there, well, then it's nationwide. It's kind of like how the gay marriage thing. It was better for them to fail in the state and then fail in the district or circuit, because then they won at a federal level. And they didn't have to fight the fight in every state. It was just nationwide immediately. Same thing with this. So I kind of hope it goes that way. Although, that will take more time, and some people aren't patient. And I have the luxury of being someone who's well prepared and doesn't need anything, and etc. So I know I'm speaking from a position of privilege right here. I'm using my gun guy privilege here to make my decisions, because I'm already well stocked, and I don't even prefer the kind of things they're banning. But that's not the point. The point is, I almost wish it would go to the federal level, because that would be a bigger victory, and we wouldn't have to fight all these little victories. But I can understand people who would rather win state by state, simply because it's quicker for the people in those states. So I understand that, but I just wanted to explain what's going on here. And like I said, they can either just let this go trial. They can take this to a higher court. They can appeal this decision. And they have grounds to appeal this decision right here. They can just say, listen, he based his decision on the fact that the public interest is at stake here. And the Supreme Court just said you can't consider public interest. So there would pretty easily be a winnable case on appeal. But whether they'll bother to do that or not depends on, how soon they think they're going to go to trial, etc. But like I said, there's a lot going on, and some of it may seem like, oh, this takes forever, or, oh, we've lost a major battle here. We didn't really lose anything major here. It was just an injunction against the law. My advice to anyone who is confident the law is going to be overturned like I am, do what you want to do, just keep your mouth shut. But here's the thing, this is really hurting businesses. And this was designed to hurt businesses. And it really is hurting the businesses. So the best thing you can do right now to help win this battle is support your local gun shops. Go there and buy ammo. If you're the type of person who wouldn't normally buy a revolver, go buy a revolver. If you're a person who wouldn't normally buy a lever action, go buy a lever action. Help support the people that are fighting the fight right now, like Sporting Systems. They're really the ones on the front line right now. So do that. That's what you can do. But like I said, this is not something that is a loss against the assault weapons ban. This was one out-of-touch judge that they purposely shopped for, denied an injunction based on grounds that are no longer legal to base your decision on. So not really anything unexpected because, like I said, the anti-gunners are in a corner. They are throwing everything they can against the wall. They're breaking all the rules because they know they're losing. And they're panicking. And there's a lot of politicians that have taken a lot of Bloomberg money to get things done. And they're like, oh my God, if I don't get things done and I don't do something right now, that money's going to stop flowing. How am I going to pay for my presidential run if I lose all this anti-gun group funding? And believe me, those groups are big money. They make huge profits every year. They love to talk about how much money the NRA makes and how much influence they have. They aren't a drop in the bucket compared to how much money these anti-gun groups pull in every year, how much profit they make, how much they pay themselves, how much they spend buying politicians, way more than the NRA. Even though I do hate the NRA too, not changing my opinion on the NRA just because there's another bad guy in town. I'm not going to say, oh, the NRA, all they did was shoot my dog and punch my mother. They're better than this new guy that came in who shot my mother and punched my dog. So, no, I can hate them both. But like I was saying, all that was decided right here was whether an injunction was going to be issued. The order itself is laughable. The judge himself is suspect. And it wasn't surprising because we knew that the Attorney General Ferguson was going to shop for a judge he could manipulate and would agree with him. So it wasn't surprising. Now we just got to see what happens in court. And like I said, we could win in the state and it would be over in the state. But that wouldn't take care of the circuit. And if we won the circuit, that wouldn't take care of federal. So there's a lot of different ways this can go. We can either win a pretty good victory, we can win a great victory, or we can win a grand victory. But victory is coming, so don't panic. Don't believe these stories. That right there, the way they're misrepresenting this story as if the assault weapons ban was found constitutional and the gun groups lost and blah, 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 which is the way it's being portrayed in the media, especially leftist media. That's just a sign of how desperate they are for any good news they can have, because this wasn't a very big deal. It just means we're going to have to deal with something for a little bit longer, but victory is pretty much assured in the long run.